Hi there, everyone, and thanks very much for tuning in to the Vintage Hi-Fi Guy once again. So today, as you'll see, slightly different surroundings. I'm in the home office today, so the sound may be a little bit different to what we've become used to. And hopefully I'm not going to have any of those surprise visitors bursting through the door at any moment, as we've seen on the news channels with the Zoom conferences that have been going on. But today I want to take us right back to the 1980s or thereabouts, and a little piece of technology which I've had in my personal collection for many, many years, in fact, since that time. And what I'm going to talk about today is a tuner or tuning technology. And of course, a tuner, all it is effectively is a hi-fi radio. And tuners can now be picked up for, a matter of pence almost in secondhand stores and on eBay and the like, because radios have become very different propositions in this decade. You can now listen to radio from all around the world in the palm of your hand on your phone or on an Alexa device or on a Google device. So actually, radio is no longer the preserve of sitting down in your living room or your dining room and putting on Radio 3 in the UK and listening to amazing classical music. It's no longer just the preserve of a transistor radio listening to the cricket or the football. It's something that's omnipresent. And of course, digital has grown the radio listening population too. So whether or not you've got a digital audio broadcast radio in the car, so DAB radio in the car, or a portable DAB radio in the home, the ways that we listen to radio have changed immensely over the last 10 or 15 years. So therefore, the standalone analog tuner within the hi-fi system has become a little bit redundant. And I've been surprised to see that basic tuners from around the 70s and 80s, you can pick up on eBay for sort of 10 or 15 pounds. But the beauty of a hi-fi separate tuner is that back in the day, and I'm talking about the 70s and 80s, a lot of effort went into producing technology which was superb sounding, and it was all about the sound reproduction. And certainly when I was in the industry, the benchmark was that if you could put BBC Radio 3 onto a tuner with a piece of wet string, in other words, a piece of wire that was often strung up the wall of many living rooms and listening rooms back in the day, if that could produce respectable sound quality, then that was good enough to become a hi-fi tuner. But of course, there were also audiophile components as well. And one of the components which actually my father bought me and then has stayed with me ever since is this one here. And this is the Marantz ST450. Now, the ST450 was intended to partner with a brand new range of amplifiers, console stereo amplifiers, which were built around this relatively sleek footprint that you can see here. And they were called the PM range. So it was the PM350, the PM310. And it actually used a very similar front plate. It used identical LEDs within the signal strength bars. And actually, they were the most beautiful set of hi-fi components, finished in Marantz champagne gold, of course. Now, this particular device was very special for its time because not only did it have this wonderful fluorescent display, so this isn't an LED display, this is a fluorescent display, but it also had something called gyro touch tuning. And gyro touch tuning was a patented Marantz technology which linked an old-fashioned tuning knob, which was still very much required in the early 1980s, to the fluorescent digital tuning display. And actually, the way these two things were linked was in a very traditional manner. It was actually linked with a series of pulleys and wires which linked to various digital controls, which then changed the display on here. And whilst the ST450 was another one of those sort of trailblazing products which introduced gyro touch tuning into relatively affordable hi-fi components, A lot of manufacturers also tried to do the same, but with far less success than Marantz actually had. So gyro touch tuning not only made a bit of a statement on the front panel of this range of hi-fi, it matched the bold design that you saw around the early to mid 1980s with Marantz hi-fi, and as I say, with the champagne gold finish. But technically it was also very advanced because it married analog tuning technologies with the digital requirements of a fluorescent display. So it was actually incredibly complex. And again, as I've said in many of my videos, it was a little bit over-engineered. And that's why, if you can find one of the early Marantz tuners from this era that used gyro touch tuning, the chances are it's still going to be working, because these things were truly built to last. Now, as I say, this particular one has been in my own personal collection for quite a while, so I'm quite wedded to it. But I haven't used it for a number of years because, as I said earlier on, I've become quite wedded now to listening to the radio on the Alexa or on the Google devices, or even on my phone. So this poor little thing tends not to be used very much anymore. But this morning, I connected it up to my Technics amp, which I'm using right now, and it still sounds exactly the same as it did before. And as some of you will know, where we live here, we don't get a particularly good FM signal. So I tried it on BBC Radio 5 Live, which is broadcast on 693 and 909 on the AM band. And I was really quite surprised. For an AM signal, for AM reproduction, it was really superb. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to sell this now because I'm moving on. I don't use it very much anymore. And there's clearly demand out there for people that want to buy a good quality hi-fi component tuner. So this particular tuner, in almost perfect condition, I did knock it on the corner a wee while ago when I was moving house. But this tuner is going to be for sale for £129 on my eBay channel, but also it'll be on the Facebook page as well. But what I would say about this is that you're buying a piece of hi-fi history. That gyro touch tuning was well ahead of the competition at the time. As I say, it was a patented tuning mechanism which was designed by Marantz for Marantz equipment. And I actually believe that gyro touch went on to being installed in receivers and tuners for many, many years to come. It was that successful. I suppose the only downside to gyro touch was that it was incredibly sensitive. So those of you that have watched the video about the music center with the touch sensitive dials, of course, this was what, 7 to 10 years later than those touch sensitive buttons. And hi-fi manufacturers have got their fingers burnt by using those touch sensitive controls because of the issue that I mentioned before in damp weather, that they'd automatically change channel. So this marriage between analog and digital technology removed that peculiarity with damp weather. But what it also did is it made an incredibly sensitive tuning knob. So effectively, you didn't have to touch the dial very much for it to change the frequency and knock it off the station. So, I've seen things on YouTube about cats playing with this and walking out the room and the frequency changes. So there were some software additions that were made to this tuner later on, which made the dial slightly less sensitive. But this particular model, in fact, the ST420 and ST450 use the original software, so it is incredibly sensitive. So if I pick it up and have a quick look at the display, so you can see here, that is the display on here. If I move the gyro touch, you can see I'm not touching it very much, and it is changing quite significantly. Now, because of the deviation on that control, in other words, if it was changing just one tick, it would likely not change the sound reproduction at all. But then more than a touch on here, and you are actually moving away from the frequency. So it may interrupt those that were recording the top 20 chart show, for argument's sake, onto a cassette. And so it's an incredibly sensitive tuning device. But likewise, the construction quality and the reproduction when you've tuned it in is absolutely immense. Now, the only thing that this doesn't have are preset stations, because when this particular tuner was designed, the technology hadn't yet formed as to how to store preset memories and combine it with this tuning method. So that's the only thing that you won't be getting with this. But of course, gyro touch tuning made it so easy to change channel anyway that it was felt at the time that presets wouldn't be used that much. So a real opportunity to buy, as I say, a very important piece of equipment to me. As I say, I don't use it now. So if you're interested, then please bid for it over on eBay or drop me a line either here in the comments below or on our Facebook page at Vintage Hi-Fi Guy. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief video about tuners. I can't say that you'll be getting an awful lot more videos about radios and tuners in the coming months. So this is a bit of a one-off to say cheerio to part of my own personal equipment collection. So have a great day, whatever you're doing, and we'll speak soon. Bye.